Hey there, welcome to the Great Canadian Blueprint, where we dig into the economic forces that shaped Canada. I'm Ian, your guide, and today we're kicking off with a wild ride back to the 1850s in Bytown, now known as Ottawa, a gritty town buzzing with ambition. This was the heart of Canada's timber empire, driven by larger-than-life barons who turned forests into fortunes. Let's get started. Imagine stepping into Bytown in the 1850s. Your boots sink into a muddy street, worked up by horse carts and the boots of thousands of workers. The air hits hard, a cocktail of pine resin so sharp it stings your nose, mixed with the damp smell of freshly cut logs. Ahead, the Shadir Falls roars, a 15-meter plunge that sprays mist you can taste on your lips. That thunder blends with the screams of saw blades slicing through white pine, kicking up sawdust that drifts like a gritty blizzard. You hear the clop-clop of horses dragging timber carts, the shouts of raftsmen on the Ottawa River, and the faint hum of tavern chatter spilling out into the night. Lanterns flicker in the distance, lighting up the chaos. Lumberyards sprawl along the riverbank, stacked high with logs, while timber cribs bob downstream, guided men with poles and nerves of steel. Up on a hill, you spot a few brick mansions, glowing with the warm light of wealth. This is Bytown, a rough and tumble outpost of about 7,000 souls in 1850, but it's growing fast. By 1861, it's 14,000, and by 1900, it'll balloon to 60,000 people. Back then, it's got 3 sawmills. By 1870, it's up to 20. This isn't just a town, it's the beating heart of a timber empire. Let's take a moment to meet the men who built it, the timber barons. These guys didn't just chop trees, they turned forests into fortunes. Start with John Rodolphus Booth. He's a carpenter from Quebec, barely 25 when he lands in Bytown in 1854. He's got no money, just hustle. He leases a rickety shingle mill near the falls, scraping by until 1859 when he scores a monster contract. 3 million board feet of pine for Canada's Parliament buildings. That's enough wood to build 200 homes, and it nets him $7,500, about $100,000 in today's money. Booth doesn't stop there. By the 1870s, his mills are spitting out 30 million board feet a year, and by 1892, he's the world's biggest lumber producer, controlling 250,000 acres of timberland. Then there's Henry Franklin Bronson, an American who crosses into Canada in 1853. He sets up a sawmill at Shadir Falls and scales it into a juggernaut. His son inherits the business, and today, Bronson Avenue in Ottawa nods to his legacy. Across the river, in Hull, Ezra Butler Eddy is killing it too. Lumber, matches, you name it. His factories light up the skyline. These barons aren't just loggers, they're innovators. Booth builds the Canadian Atlantic Railway in 1897, a 400-mile lifeline from Ottawa to Vermont, hauling timber to global markets. It's a game changer, and it's all theirs. In the 1850s, Britain's desperate for timber. Napoleon's wars choked off the Baltic supply, so Canada fills the gap. In 1864 alone, Quebec exports 20 million cubic feet of white pine, and the Ottawa Valley a big chunk of that. Booth's operation pulls in $1 million a year by the 1870s, roughly $25 million in today's money. His mills and camps employ 1,500 men at their peak, but the ripple effect's bigger. Add rissmen, blacksmiths, carpenters, and shoekeepers, and you've got 5,000 jobs tied to timber. Sawmills multiply. Bytown 3 in 1850 grow to 12 in 1860, each pumping out 10 to 20 million board feet annually. That's enough wood to build 1,000 homes per mill every year. By 1870, the valley's got over 20 mills, and the output's staggering. Hundreds of millions of board feet fueling ships in Liverpool, homes in Boston, and railways across Canada. Timber profits don't just stay local though. They seed banks, spark investments, and even help launch Canada's first stock exchange in Montreal in 1874. The valley's GDP in 1860s? Hard to pin down exactly, but estimates peg Canada's timber trade at $10 million annually. That's $250 million today, and Ottawa's at the core. These barons don't just sit on their wealth either. They use their wealth and power to bend the rules to their benefit. Booth becomes good friends with Sir John A. Macdonald, Canada's first Prime Minister. Booth names a son after him. That friendship lands him fat government contracts and a say in policy. The barons pushed for low export duties, keeping taxes on timber shipments to Britain under 5%. And it works. They also score massive land grants. Booth's timber limits hit 250,000 acres by the 1880s. Bronson and Eddy aren't far behind. The Rideau Canal, built in 1832 for military defense, turns into a timber highway thanks to the lobbying. By 1850, it's moving 500,000 cubic feet of wood a year. But their greed has blowback. By 1883, Ontario creates Algonquin Park, 1.5 million acres to stop the forest from disappearing. It's Canada's first big conservation moves sparked by the barons' relentless cutting. Nationally, their focus on timber ties Canada to Britain's economy, probably longer than it should, slowing the shift to factories. Still, their cash builds infrastructure, roads, bridges, schools, and funds the push for Confederation in 1867. They're not just players, they're the architects of our country. Now, real estate is where their mark really sticks. Bytown's a boomtown. Just over 600 homes in 1848 jumped to 2,100 by 1861. Land prices go nuts. A lot worth $50 in 1840 hits $500 by 1860, then $5,000 by 1900. The barons drive it. Booth builds a mansion at 252 Metcalfe Street in 1906. A beautiful home with limestone walls, big bay windows, all Queen and Revival style. It's a National Historic Site now, but back then it was just a massive flex of his wealth. Bronson and Eddy throw up their own palaces, brick and timber with wraparound porches and stained glass. Meanwhile, workers cram into Corktown slums. Shacks of scrap wood and tar paper, renting for $2 a month. No plumbing, no heating, just a roof. In 1857, Bytown becomes Ottawa, named Canada's capital by Queen Victoria. The timber boom makes it a contender. Its population and wealth outpaced bigger cities like Toronto and Montreal. By 1900, Ottawa's at 60,000 people, and downtown lots are gold mines. These barons' wealth shapes the city's bones. With all this wealth being built, you'd think there was plenty to go around, but it's not all rosy. Loggers grind through 12-hour days, 6 days a week for $1 to $2 a day. Raftsmen die on the river. Drowning spiked in the 1860s with no real stats kept because no one cared enough to count. The forests take a beating too. By the 1880s, the valley's old-growth pines are toast. Clear cutting leaves erosion, wrecked habitats, and a landscape that'll never recover. The barons' profit-first mindset sets a precedent Canada's still untangling. Workers feel it most. Boom times bring jobs, but busts, like the timber price crash in 1873, leave hundreds out of work. Corktown swells and inequality festers. The barons live large while the rest scrape by. So what's the verdict? The timber barons logged the Ottawa Valley into history. They turned a money outpost into Canada's capital, built an economy from scratch, and laid tracks for a nation. Their names echo in Ottawa streets and buildings. But the costs, environmental scars, and worker struggles make you wonder if there wasn't a better way to go about it. Without the barons, Canada might have been smaller, less connected, slower to rise. Here's the big question. Do you think the timber barons' legacy is more positive or negative for Canada? Drop your take in the comments. I want to hear it. Thanks for watching The Great Canadian Blueprint. If you love this deep dive, hit that like button, subscribe, and stick around for more stories of Canada's wild past.